Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Central Virginia fishing report with Ethan Martin at TaleTellers Fly Shop. How you doing, Ethan?
I'm doing all right today.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So we're recording earlier than normal, and I had a bad feeling when you said I can record even earlier that the fishing wasn't so great today. So you want to share the story?
Yeah, well, that's the joys of this time of year. Is I fish pretty much every Monday that I can. And so we ended up, we were on a local river in the morning looking for striper, and the water was a good deal high. And so we ended up calling an audible after like 2 hours of fishing and nothing, and went to another lake that I had a helpful hint that it could be pretty hot. And that was also a dud. So it, you get skunked. It happens. I got skunked. The guy I was fishing with, he caught 8 fish. So
Yeah.
at least we caught a fish. But, yeah, it was just one of those days, and kind of woke up feeling weird. It was like 5 in the morning, and I was like, I don't know how this day is going to go. And turns out my feelings were right. But I always try to stay optimistic. Everybody gets skunked.
Yeah, it's been kind of an odd spring in the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, it's been, cooler than normal or longer. We've maybe not had, we certainly had rain, but we haven't had as many, those whopper rain events we've been having for the last 4 or 5 years in the spring either.
Yeah, and that's been the interesting thing with like our area, because within an hour's drive of Lynchburg, you've got a lot of diversity in the river systems themselves. And so like the river that we were on to start today, it just, you never know what they're going to do with that. And we got a little splash of rain on Saturday, which is just enough to send it up a couple thousand CFS. And I could have looked at the gates this morning, but I was just hopeful and lazy. But like you said, it's been an interesting spring so far, because pretty much as always the brook trout, they're eating, all the hatches, everything is going well. The stock trout streams are fishing good, kind of like what you would expect of trout, and we've actually got pretty good flows for that too. So that's nice. I mean, I told Andy, the guy I was fishing with today, I was like, it's a shame that we keep trying to catch all these stinking bass, because we could have gone and done a hurting on some brook trout today. But it's just the name of the game, especially this time of the year. And I think on a lot of our lakes, we've definitely been seeing that a lot of the bass and largemouth in particular are spawning or just about spawned up. Like I mentioned earlier, I had a buddy who he caught a 12-pound bass this past weekend that measured 28 inches long. So that's a heck of a fish. That was right here. Pretty close to Lynchburg, 40 minutes about. And so you got that going on with the giant pre-spawn, and then you've got smallmouth as well. And it's still kind of the same game for them, which is just they're moody, and if you want to catch one, you just got to devote the time to it, and it'll happen, and dredging the bottom still, and kind of figure out what pattern is going to work for that day, because that's a huge part of it. It's just getting it in front of the fish and then figuring out what is it that they're going to eat, and admitting defeat on some days, which is new today.
Yeah, but it's been weird, right? Because even though it's been probably a little bit cooler than normal, there's been, even if there hasn't been a lot of rain, there's been a lot of frontal activity. So there's been a decent amount of bouncing in the temperature.
Yeah, and I've said that for a long time too. I think bass are way more moody than trout in a lot of different ways. Both smallmouth, striper, largemouth. If the word bass is in there, it's a moody fish. And definitely, you've got stuff like, for example, one of the flies that we throw a ton for them is just a half and half or a clouser. And it's just a good general bait fish imitation that it always looks like food. And one of the things that you see with guys that are throwing conventional or gear is they're throwing a lot of different things to get that reaction bite, which is something that we can do in the fly world. It's harder to make it happen, because a lot of that reaction bite comes from like swift movement, either from the rod tip or just how fast they can move stuff, as opposed to with the fly, where pretty much everything we're doing is a slower pace. So in the winter months, that's great. But as soon as you hit like this time of the year when you're trying to get that reaction bite, it takes more effort. And so, yeah, it's just an interesting time. Like we said before, I'm hoping that it doesn't look like we've got a ton of rain coming in the forecast. So hopefully, like if our smallmouth do start pushing to beds and do start spawning here soon, hopefully that means that we'll get a year class of fish. Hopefully, like you said, something to fish 4 or 5 years. Because past couple of years we've been plagued by those just late spring, well, mid-spring, which are kind of mid-spring now, but just massive rainstorms that just wipe everything out. So it's a weird thing. I mean, if you're fishing for trout, this is the time of the year for you. I mean, you're going to have a great time. We're seeing a lot of guys catching stuff on dry flies. On our local fisheries, Yellow Sally has been fishing really well. That'll only get better. We're kind of at the front end of it. But yeah, so go drop a rig, go up through a little trout stream, you're going to catch fish. If you're doing bad stuff, that's a different ballgame.
Yeah, well, at least you know what you're getting yourself into. And, folks, we love questions on the articulate fly. You can email them to us or send them to us on our Facebook, our Instagram page. And if we pick your question, I'll send you some articulate fly swag, and we'll enter you in a drawing for something cool from the shop at the end of the season. And Ethan, before I let you hop and knock the skunk of the day off, why don't you let folks know shop hours, location, where to find you guys on the internet, and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, so the shop location is in downtown Lynchburg. So if you're familiar with the area, we're about 2 blocks up from the James. You can find pretty much everything that we have in the store, or even other resources that we have online at TaleTellersVA.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff. We've got all the social media things. And so, yeah, a couple different ways you can get in contact with us and figure out what's going on, or just kind of keep up to date through the weeks. So, yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, listen, folks, you owe it to yourself. The weather's going to be really gorgeous in Central Virginia in the next few days. You owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Ethan.
Tight lines.